So, if you're someone who's tried many times to fit in and be like everyone else, but you failed repetitively, then my advice to you is to stop. Stop trying to fit in. Because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to be extraordinary. You were meant to stand out. You were meant to be unique. And you don't need to be like everyone else. When we're in school, when we're growing up, we're all individuals and we have our own unique gifts and talents. But what happens is that in school, we are brainwashed into all being reformed into little cogs that are meant to work in unison in a machine. We're meant to fit in. We're meant to be like everyone else. We're meant to be average. Why is being average something that people pride themselves on? As long as I can remember, I've never fit in anywhere. I've never felt at home anywhere. I've always been different. I've always stood out. And growing up as a British born Asian in a predominantly white community, in a predominantly white area, in an English speaking area, I definitely didn't fit in. That coupled with the fact that I didn't like football like the other boys, and I would sit in the playground playing with bugs, looking for bugs, doing roly polies, jumping around, pretending to be an animal instead of a human. It all really just made it even harder to fit in. And so through primary school, I didn't fit in, although it was less noticeable because everyone's a bit wacky in primary school. But life was still difficult back then because I didn't fit in. But where it got really challenging is when I went to secondary school. And there's even more pressure when you go to an all boys state grammar school. And you have this expectation to become a quintessential grammar school boy, getting the good grades, playing rugby, looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, behaving a certain way, achieving these expectations that the school put on you to go to a top uni and study some pointless degree that is going to keep you in academia, that's going to keep you in probably a pretty dead end 9 to 5 job for the rest of your life. So through secondary school, I didn't have many friends. I stood out, I was different. I want to say unique, but people probably just thought I was weird. And looking back on it, I was a bit weird. And instead of being ashamed and trying so hard to fit in, I should have just embraced the fact that I was different. I should have cared less what people thought. I mean, I always was a bit of a lone wolf. But at that time, I did care what people thought of me. And I didn't really have a particular friendship group. I didn't have many friends at all back then. I wasn't a horrible person. I still treated people with respect, or at least I tried to. I wasn't perfect. But school was a hard time. Not only for me, but probably for you as well. And if you're still in school, it probably is a hard time. But just know that your best days are ahead. Your school days will not be the best days of your life. And anyone who says otherwise peaked early. They peaked in high school. They peaked in secondary school. And that is as good as it gets for them. But if your life kind of sucks right now, just know that it will get better. Just know that as long as you keep working on yourself, as long as you don't accept mediocrity, things will get better. So off I went to uni to do my undergrad, and somehow I managed to fit in. Maybe it wasn't even the fact that I fit in, it was the fact that everyone was more accepting, and that was the first time when I felt I could start to just be myself, and I got along with everyone. I didn't think I had any enemies at uni during my undergrad. I got along with everybody. I don't think anyone really disliked. That was like a first ever in my life. And as a young man in their late teens / early 20s, I was just trying to find myself. I still didn't know who I was. I still wasn't certain of a lot of things. There was a lot of things that I was still on this journey of self-discovery. And so I mostly blended in, actually. during this time, or at least I felt I blended in. It was only when I went and did my second degree at Southampton Uni that I went towards the opposite end of the spectrum, where I was trying too hard to be different and unique. Instead of just being myself, I was toning it up a little bit, which probably annoyed a fair few people. And it's only really in the last 2-3 years where I have really started to find myself. I'm 27 now, so this is basically the last few years of my 20s. And your 20s are about finding yourself. Especially as young men, we peak later. We find ourselves in our 20s. In our 30s, that's when we know who we are. So really, I wanted to make this video to encourage you guys that if you are struggling right now because you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, because you don't feel like you belong, know that maybe that's for the best. It probably is for the best. You're probably one of these unique, extraordinary individuals that is meant to stand out. You don't need to try too hard to be unique. You don't need to go against the grain and try to be unauthentic because you've toned up too much. Because trust me when I say I've made that mistake before. You need to be your authentic self. You don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to try and be anyone else. You don't need to hide who you are. You don't need to be ashamed of who you are. Of course, be kind, loving and respectful to everyone. Treat others how you want to be treated. But at the end of the day, if people don't accept you, what does it matter? It doesn't. You don't need to care. Like, who gives... I'd rather not swear on this channel, but who actually gives a crap what people think of you? If they all want to be sheep and they want to follow each other and be the same as each other and not stick out and not stand out and not be extraordinary, that's totally fine. That's their choice. But for you, you don't have to choose to try and fit in. Stop trying to fit in and be yourself. Be your true, authentic self, even if that is sticking out and not fitting in. And if you're watching this video, it probably means that you don't fit in, and it probably means that you are extraordinary. So you need to know that, and you need to keep pushing forwards and know that life will get better. Be true to yourself.